cord. So we're talking about your Niehoff, his junior year. Some of the kids like Rod Wood, who would make up the state championship team,
Right.
are start to join your team.
Right. Really, we started getting pretty good on John Niehoff's senior year with Tommy Carroll, and we started Niehoff, Wood, Chris, Ferris, and Carroll. We were 22 and six somewhere, and we were going to the regions. We won the district, going to regions, and we got to semifinals against Marshall, who we played in a scrimmage and beat him by 50. And I could not convince the kids that they were not the same team, and they knocked us out. That was David Oliverio was the coach.
And that was Tim Kearney.
And what?
That was Tim Kearney, the 6'10" player that went to
went to West Virginia, I believe.
Yeah, I was at that game. I was a 7th grader, and I was in the stands. It was a great matchup. And I remember Niehoff was one of those guys I tried to play like. When I saw him play, the way he used to back his man down, he would pivot. He was a guy that I loved to watch play.
Yeah, he was a true coach on the floor. I mean, that kid he is golden. You know, my system, if I want to call it that, really relies on a point guard. And I've had some really good point guards. You know, Kevin Brown, Niehoff, Wood, Mike James. A lot of those kids, were very good point guards.
Yeah. All right, so Niehoff graduates. That's a big loss. He goes to Mason, has a great career at Mason. So,
right.
I mean, going into the next year, were you optimistic that you can win the region? So it's funny, this 81 team that we talk about, it was a great team. I saw them play numerous times. I went down to state and watched you guys win state. But because you won the state tournament in 81 and no one else won for years, the legend of this team grew and grew. I mean, it just grew and grew. So I remember Mike Callego on our Facebook group one day pointed out and reminded me that you guys had some really close calls in the region. I mean, I think he even said maybe there was a half-court shot. So why don't we go through that season, and how did it go in the regular season and then about the postseason?
Well, we were 12-6, I believe, regular season. Very unhappy. Weren't playing well. We lost our last 3 games in a row. And so we told the kids, we played Edison first round of the tournament. We told the kids, I don't want to see you till game time. Just get out. Go play golf. Go do something. Just get away from basketball. And they did. They all went their different ways. And for 3 days, we didn't practice. And then we came back and we beat Edison. And then we beat Groveton on the last shot. And then we were in the regionals. And so kind of the pressure was off. And then we beat Mount Vernon twice in a row to win the district, which is what they did to us in '88. They came back and beat us twice in a row. We're really 3, 2 in the tournament and then in regionals.
And at that point, what's that? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So then we played Mount Vernon. Then we played West Springfield in the regionals, and that came down to the last shot. Rod Wood shot it and missed it, and Todd Blunden, instead of capturing it, batted it out right to Rod. He shot it as the buzzer went off. We beat him by 1.
So you guys would have lost if not for that shot.
Oh, yeah, if Todd Blunden would have grabbed it or hit it anywhere else, we were done. We're gone. Boy, it was an amazing game.
Yeah, he's a great player. It's sad to hear. So you beat West Springfield, and that was probably Glenn Dieter, maybe Lambert was on that team. Who was on that team?
I know Blondin was. I have a hard time remembering the other. I have a
Yeah.
hard time remembering mine, much less theirs.
Okay.
But
So they,
Warren was
yeah,
the head coach.
yeah, of course.
Jim Warren was,
Mhm.
and it was just a great game, back and forth.
What a way to lose. So next
Right,
is so next you go to the semifinals, right? That's
right.
right,
And we beat. I believe it was Stewart,
right.
and then not Stewart, but South Lakes. And
Mm,
then we had Mount Vernon in the finals. I'm sorry, it wasn't South Lake. It was Chantilly.
we should tell you.
Mark Martino, Chantilly. We beat them. And then the finals, we played Mount Vernon and beat them again.
Beat them again. And that was a Mount Vernon team that 2 years ago had won state. So they probably still had one or two of those players.
I don't know if they had Thomas and Richie Trailer or something like that. The
No,
shooter.
that was the '88 team. We're still in '80.
Not the
We're
88
still,
team?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It did have Thomas. It did have
They
Thomas.
did. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I
Okay,
said, I have a
so
hard time running my own.
no, exactly. I'm really testing you here. So then I went to the state. I went to the state tournament, and because my sister was playing for Robinson, she was down there where the Robinson girls won state as well. But
Right.
I was so excited to be able to watch you guys play. And I remember reading in the newspaper before that you thought you guys had an advantage coming into the state tournament in that you had a lot of close, narrow escapes, and you'd faced a lot of adversity during the year. So you actually felt pretty good going into the state tournament, right?
I really did. I felt like we were in a good spot. We were shooting the ball well, playing pretty good defense, not turning the ball over. I felt pretty confident, to be honest with you.
And then I know you beat Booker T in the final. But do you remember the semifinal? I can't recall the semifinal.
Patrick Henry.
It's Patrick Henry. Okay, from Roanoke.
Right.
Right.
And it's funny, Booker T got in the finals because some guy hit a half court shot.
Is that
We
right?
put him, yeah. But
I don't remember.
then we had to contend with Bruce Smith, with Tony Ferris, and that
Yeah,
was a war.
it was a war. I remember the year before that Booker T team had beaten TC in the semifinals, and it was like a 4 overtime game. It was incredible. I don't was I either there. Or I was listening to it on the radio. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a great game. So I had seen Bruce Smith play before, and he was. I mean, you guys had your hands full, but I
He
don't
was a
think
load.
he was. But he didn't have a particularly good game, and I thought you guys really controlled. You guys really controlled the game. Um, so I mean, it was a close game. I think it was like a 47-45 game.
It's 50-46.
Yeah, it was a low scoring game, but I thought you guys did a great job with that. So anyway, that was amazing. I mean, it meant so much, but we didn't know how much it meant at the time because Mount Vernon had just won state 2 years earlier. Garfield had won state the year before, so it wasn't like we thought Northern Virginia could not win at states. So
Right.
then time went by. You had some decent teams, and then the '85 team, I knew them well because I played in '84, and we had played you guys at Lee, and you guys were pretty good that year. It wasn't one of your best teams. It was Steve Carroll's sophomore year. It was Mike James's
Right.
junior year. It was Mike
Right.
Terry Woodson's junior year, and you guys beat the crap out of us. I remember it was Coach McKeag. It was Coach McKeag's second year at Robinson, and he ran the baseline offense. The back cuts, and
Right.
you guys just switched on everything. You guys were so prepared. I mean, we got you beat us by 25 points, and we had a decent team, and we had some big wins that year, and you guys beat us worse than anybody. I mean TC beat us by one. Mount Vernon, we played everybody tough. Lake Bragg beat us pretty good and stuff. But I remember you guys were so prepared for us. But anyway,
we had times when those guys were juniors, Carroll and those guys. We had times we had played good, but we just weren't consistent. We got pretty consistent their senior year.
Yeah. So well, okay. So Mike James's senior year, that was '85, and Terry
Right.
Woodson and Carroll was a junior. You guys, I think maybe been 11-9, 12-8 for the regular season. And here again, and that team was not as talented as the state champions, but you had you had a great point guard, you had two great guards, Mike James and Steve Carroll. And Woodson was a very active post. He was kind of like a little bit like Tony Ferris. He wasn't a big guy,
Right.
but he was very active in the post. So were you surprised you guys were able to win the region that year?
Yeah, I was. I just didn't think we had enough firepower, enough scoring. Because, if they shut down Steve, we had a hard time after that. But, we just got on a run. And, teams are funny. They have some tradition. They get on a run and they think they're going to win. And that's hard to beat.
Mhm. Did you, when you were talking to those kids about the tournament, did you talk a lot about the 81 run to those kids? Like,
Not really.
yeah,
I tell you what we did when I first started coaching. The first practice, we would put on the board who we had to beat to get to the regionals, and where we stood in the district. Of course, everybody was 0-0, but we put in their mind right away. If we want to go to states, this is what we got to do. This is who we got to beat. We also worked on last second shot the first day of practice, just to put them on notice that we plan on going somewhere, and we have to be organized when we go.
so I know you guys lost to Booker T down at James Madison. I was there. Who did you guys beat in the regional final that year? Was that Mount Vernon? Was that Mount Vernon? Or uh,
I can't remember who we beat. I'm trying
I
to
can't
think.
remember. Robinson was awesome that year. We had Chris Warren, Jeff Bowling, and we had those guards that end up, almost winning state in two years later. They were
Right.
sophomores that year. We really had a good team. That team very easily could have gone to state. I mean, it was wide open. South Lakes had Brian Allen, who was a tremendous player as well, and they had some good players as well. But I went down to state, and Booker T, it wasn't even a match. They were so big
Yeah.
and they were so big
Yeah.
and physical that it was just, you guys could not even get on track that game.
Well, Terry Wilson was not a physical player.
No, he
And
wasn't.
Jeff Hancock was just too slow and too small. He's our other post, and they just couldn't compete with those guys down low.
Yeah.
You're right. It was nice getting there, but we kind of knew we were limited in what we could do.
Yeah. I mean, it was great. It was great getting there, but you can't win the state with every team.
No, you
But
can't.
so we can go to the 88 team now. So, a team that I love, the 87 Robinson team, had, made a great run to state, almost won it. Alonzo Mourning was too much at the very end. But in 88, you had a team that was very experienced. You'd gone with sophomores in 86. You were grooming
Right.
this team. And it's funny, I had just talked to Bill Courtney. I don't know if you heard the 88 podcast I did. So I just
I
talked to
did.
him.
I did
Yeah.
see that.
Oh, great. He wants you to call him. Remind me to give you his number. He wants to get in touch with you.
Okay.
But that team, they had played as sophomores together. They had a great run, and you groomed them. You put them in. You threw them in there. You played them as young players. So did you think going into the 88 year, because that year the region was loaded? I mean, you had Grant Hill, you had Crawford Palmer, not just them. Their teams were loaded. And you had Hayfield had a great team. Chantilly. Did you think going in that year you guys could be something special?
I thought we were good because they put the 3 line in,
That's right.
and we spent the whole summer shooting nothing but threes. And we had Jeff Given and David Zadaraki could both fill it up. And then when they started shooting, we found out that the lane opened up for Courtney. And he was tough 1-on-1, but they couldn't really help because Given and Zadaraki were shooting so well. And Solomon and Ricky inside were two wood choppers that we call them, and they were tough kids. It was a perfect blend of what you needed for a long run, and they were ready from day one. They were ready.
Yeah, and it was beautiful about Bill's development, because I had known Bill pretty well because I used to play pickup with him, and every year he just took quantum leaps in his development. And I remember, and we can go back to the regular season for a minute, but I remember at the state tournament, he turned into this player. That's a very high level. Those teams that you played were extremely high level teams, and he was at some moments the best player on the floor. And it's
Oh,
just
no
amazing.
question.
And it's just amazing how he developed from his freshman year.
Well, as far as freshman year, when he'd shoot it, the coaching staff would say, as the world turns, because he had a funny release and the ball spin sideways.
Yeah.
And we used to make him so mad when he said that. He spent all summer in the gym shooting, one hand shooting and getting his shot down. I mean, he was dedicated. He was not, his shooting was not going to be the reason he didn't play well. He worked as hard as anybody I ever had.
Yeah, it was beautiful. So let's go back to. I think Bill said you guys had some big wins that year. You guys destroyed Wakefield. I think it was Kenya Hunter's sophomore year, and so the season went really well. But
Really well,
really well. But
except for Mount Vernon.
Yeah, Mount Vernon you could not beat and during the regular. Well, actually, at all. But the regional tournament, even though you made it, it was not going to be an easy road to get to the finals. Even though two teams now would go to state, so you didn't have to win the the regional like you did in '85. All you had to do is get to the final. So I know you. So I know. I think Bill said you beat. Do you remember the road you had to take to get there?
I think we were at. I really don't, but I know we had to beat South Lakes when we got to Robinson. We had to beat them, and then of course you had Mount Vernon in the finals.
Okay, in Mount Vernon, and then Mount Vernon had the historic upset against Lake Braddock. And,
right.
Yeah. So you probably thought you were going to have to play Lake Braddock, and then you're playing Mount Vernon again, which was no prize since they had the upper hand. Were you thinking back? Do you think you guys could have beaten Lake Braddock that year? Because that team was one of the best teams I've ever seen play, and they had destroyed everybody.
It's hard to say if you could have. Obviously you say yes, because there's no way anybody can prove you wrong. But they had Coleman and Hubert Davis, and they had a Crockett, I believe, played on that team.
Crockett.
They were loaded. I don't know how they didn't go further than what they did.
I mean, it's just.
And they had Hubert for 4 years, right?
Yeah. He played. I think he might have played JV his freshman year, but I mean, he did. They had, point guard was sometimes a challenge to them because they had Mike Luce his junior year. He was a great player, and then he moved Jason there his senior year, and Jason was a great player, but that was his first, I think, full year playing point guard. So I think they did have some personnel things they had to tweak, but I mean, they had Jay Bunnell, they had Charlie Shelley. I mean, they were deep. They had guys on the bench that I knew really well from pickup that could play. They just didn't fit into Coach Wells' system. But Mount Vernon just had the game plan for them, and the breaks went their way. I mean, there were a couple plays, 3-point plays that could have been there were travels that could have been 3-point plays. They just have things go their way, and that's just the way it is in basketball. And
right.
So anyway, you lose to Mount Vernon in the final, and that was interesting because what happens is you lose the final, and usually that's a bad thing. But Indian River had been undefeated that year, and they get upset in the regional final to Booker T. Washington. So not that Booker T was going to be easy, but it wasn't such a bad thing.
Easier than Indian River.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe Indian River, but at least you don't have to. I mean, Alonzo Mourning is a problem. I mean, he's
right.
I had seen Robinson go up against him, and that Robinson team was on a roll. I mean, they had beaten in the semis. They had won by 28 points. They were playing so well, and they played Indian River tough. But I mean, he's a very special person. He's very difficult because not only is he 6'11", he's so agile. He's mean. I mean, he's very tough. So anyway, that's Mount Vernon's problem. You got to deal with Booker T, and they had tremendous athletes too. And you guys held the ball. You didn't do 4 corners. You went into a double stack.
Double stack high, we call it.
So where did you get that idea to do that?
We just were looking at. We always went to Durham, North Carolina every year. Me and my staff would go to Duke. Next day we go to UNC. Next day we go to NC State. Next game we go to Wake Forest. And they, I think it was North Carolina State that was playing around with that because of their guards. And that's where we kind of looked at it and said, it might be interesting. Because when Courtney goes away, goes around the stack, then the bottom of the stack pops out. That was Jivenin. And you had to go with him or he could light you up.
Yeah.
And so then the post player would defensive player would drop down and cut Billy's penetration off, but I always left an outlet pass. So we just go the other way. And Billy could go either way. So it was a good game plan for them, for Booker T.
Yeah. So I guess the other option would have been the four corners, but the double stack is a little more intricate in terms of how you have to, as you just described, how you have to defend it, right?
Right. You got to make a commitment one way or the other, or have somebody who plays a point, a great defensive player that can shut your point guard down, and then you have problems. You got to go somewhere else. But they couldn't handle Billy.
Yeah, Booker T was an overtime game, wasn't it?
4.
It was 4 overtime games. Yeah, I was there. It was grueling, and I remember, and I think Bill even said this as well. You guys always tried to have the ball last.
Right.
So you would foul to get the ball last. You wanted the ball last. Is that right?
We wanted the last shot.
So even
because,
if you
like I say, the first day of practice, we went over that stuff. So their confidence level late in the game was sky high, and we felt like if we had the ball and the last shot, we were 75-25, we'd win.
And one thing that's great about basketball is, once the favorite has his back against the wall, the odds change because then the pressure goes on the favorite. So in the overtime, Booker T's no longer the favorite. You guys are confident. You guys know what you're doing. So I remember the energy in the building. And as Bill pointed out, the neutrals are all going for Robert E. Lee. So you had the support of the crowd.
Right.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It was amazing. So I don't remember exactly how it ended, but you win that game. I don't know. How did it end? Was it a last second shot?
Courtney made a shot at the end.
That's
in
right.
The fourth overtime.
Yeah. Wow. I was there going crazy. So, okay, we win that game, and now we got John Marshall, and John Marshall is bigger. They have Kendrick Warren, and they have Warren Peoples. They have a great team. They have Division I lineup. The Richmond, the Central region is not as tough as the Eastern region generally in terms of the teams they send, but this was a very talented team. Did you feel as confident going into this game since you've already kind of escaped Booker T?
I don't know if I felt confident, but the kids did. We went to breakfast that morning of the game, and Richmond people there, Marshall people there, said, "You guys might as well pack now and go home." And that last sequence, we took a last shot again to win. We missed it. Billy fouled. I forgot the guy. What's the guy's name? Went to Guns.
Georgetown.
Went to Georgetown.
Kendrick Warren.
Right, and the ball popped up into Jivenin's hands. He shoots at the buzzer, and we win.
It was amazing.
I mean, we just felt like if we had the ball in the end, we had a really good chance.
Yeah. Well, then we go next to Indian River. So you did it. You did it. No, you went to Patrick Henry. I'm sorry.
Right, Patrick Henry.
Indian River loses to Patrick Henry, and this is George Lynch, Melvin Davis,
right,
Curtis Blair, Percy. I mean, it's one of the greatest teams in the history of the state. One of the greatest teams I've ever seen play. So obviously you guys are feeling good again, but this is another level up, right?
Yeah, that was their big guys were very, very talented, and we struggled with that. But I think we only lost by 3 or 4 points.
It was a close game,
if I remember correctly.
You had your chances.
We had 2 chances. We had chances at the free throw line, and we had chances late in the game with shots. But we really played well.
So, Coach, so then the next year, did you go to Robinson the next year?
Yes.
Okay, so that's when I met you.
I went to Robinson in '90.
Okay, so you did one more year at Lee. You did what? You
right.
Came back to
as my son's senior year.
Okay, so Joe. Okay, Joe. That's right. Joe was playing. So you went to Robinson. That's where I met you. And I was your summer league coach the first year. I remember a lot. I learned a lot from you. But the 2 things I remember the most is you didn't like kids to bounce pass. You weren't crazy about the bounce passes at that time, right? And
Slowest pass in basketball.
exactly. Well, I never heard that because there are times when coaches like beating the post. There are times you didn't like bounce passes. And one thing that I wasn't prepared for. This is still the kind of early days of 3-pointers, and you used to always say, Julian, think three, think three. So that was the year we had Brian Dirge, who's
Right.
a great player, but for me, it wasn't the easiest personality for me to deal. We kind of class. He was tough. I had coached him since he was a little kid, but he was a hard guy for me to coach. But you had one of my favorite kids of all the years I've coached was Damon Simmons. I love that kid. He
Great
was just
kid.
he was a great kid. And the thing you won't realize about him, he was a fierce competitor, but you didn't
Yeah.
realize that about him because he was such a nice kid. He was very mild mannered, but he was just a fierce competitor. And I remember we were down in the summer league that was at the McDonough Arena. I'm not sure, was it Jelliff? I'm not sure.
I think
And
it was Jelliff.
you had me having these kids shooting 3-pointers. I'm like, Coach, are you sure this is what you want me to do? And by the end of the summertime, we were making those 3-pointers. I mean, we were getting it. It was coming along. We didn't win a lot of games. We were competitive, but it was coming along. So you had some success at Robinson, but let's go to the '95 team because that was a team that was a great team. It was a phenomenal team. And what did you think about that team going in? You had two great players. You had Willie Callahan and you had Addis Bennett.
Yeah, and I felt really good about the guys around him, Kolakowski and Josh Schmeezing. I felt really good that they would be okay. Corey Mickleberry, of course.
Yeah.
I felt like we had pieces, you remember, that everybody played their role. It would be a really good team, but everybody had to accept to play their role, and they did. It was really a good team.
It was a good team. And you were rated high in the Washington Post all year that year. I mean,
Right.
People thought your team was good. And you beat a great TC Williams team. Probably one of the best backcourts in the history of the Virginia with Michael Horton and Damon Jackson. You beat them in the regional finals. It's funny because people voted for that as a big upset. But coming in, I mean, those are two great teams, right?
Well, what happened the night before was TC beat West Potomac. It was the Billy Beal versus Michael Horton game.
Right.
And I think he scored in the 30s. And I'm pretty sure they routed West Potomac, if I remember correctly. And my assistant, Mike Henson, I said, Mike, we're in trouble. He said, no, we're not. I said, Mike, do you see what's on the floor out there? He said, we're okay. So the next day in a walkthrough, he put in a zone. I have never played a zone in my life. Never. And he put in a zone, and all he did was mark spots on the floor that we had to cover because he had those kids charted and knew right where they wanted to shoot from. We wanted to move them off those spots. So we played that zone the whole game. Addis Bennett and Josh stayed inside. And then the three, Kolakowski, Mickleberry, and Willie Callahan, they covered the shooting spots. And that's how we beat them.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny. You didn't play that zone against Booker T or Indian River, but you played it against you played it against TC.
Right. Well, we didn't play. What we call blue is that everybody's in the lane till your man catches the ball.
Right.
And it looked like a zone, but it really wasn't. It was, for lack of a better word, a saggy man-to-man. But a lot of times, people would run their zone offense against it. And then we were happy because zone offenses don't have picks. We just follow our man through.
Exactly.
But that zone we played against TC that night, I've never played it before. And didn't play it since.
Yeah. Well, Mike Heinsohn, he got a lot of mileage out of that 2-3 zone when he coached at TC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never realized in his zone, he's a great assistant, by the way. His zone, he covered spots. He didn't cover people. He just knew he charted people where they want to shoot from, and he'd knock them off those spots. And we figured they got a big game the night before. He might have been out a little bit late celebrating. we felt really good about our chances.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, Coach, so you ended up leaving Robinson and going to Oakton, and
Right.
and it's funny because I coached summer league, and one summer league my team, I think I was Marshall coach, and the first place team gets to coach the All-Star game. So I got to coach Kevin Brown and Kevin Marquez in an All-Star game, and those were
Right.
such nice kids. I love those kids. They were so decent, and yeah, such good just polite kids. And then when you get into the game, they were just ferocious competitors.
Kevin Marquez might have been the most competitive player I ever had. I mean, he was the most, he's competitive. I never seen, when the whistle went off, he was ready. And there was no backing off with him. Kevin Brown would just chew you up. He'd just slice you. I mean, he would do things with the ball that you didn't think he could do.
Yeah.
He's a terrific point guard.
Yeah, and you made a run to state one year, right? Because you beat somebody that Kevin Brown hit a long shot, and you got to the state tournament.
Yeah, in the district tournament, we beat Lee on a buzzer beater about halfway between the half court line and the top of the key.
Yeah.
Kevin hit it.
Yeah, some of the league guys on the group have said that was one of the worst moments of their high school career when Kevin hit that shot.
Well, they were really highly ranked going into that game. And Mike had him ready to play. I mean, excuse me. It was a good game.
Yeah. Did you get along with Mike?
Yeah, Mike's a good guy.
Yeah, he was tough on me. I mean, he would start fussing at me when I parked my car to get into the gym. He was tough on officials.
he was an intimidating looking guy.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. So Coach, then you go to Hayfield, and I think one of the best teams you've ever coached, and that's saying a lot. But I thought the team that ended up losing to JJ Redick may have been. I don't want to say your best team because the 81 team won the state, but that may have been your best team. You guys were so dominant in postseason. You were just destroying people. I think you had James Stewart.
Right. Jamar Claxton.
Mark Claxton.
Jamar. I got him right here. Where are my notes? Anyway, go ahead.
You had a couple of really good wing players. I can't think of the guy's name. He was a great defender. He was the guy that you had up against Redick. And it's
Chris Cordelis.
He was a great defender. He was
the best defender. Quick, long arms. I tell you about that game. We came down, and I was Bill Ingalls was my assistant, and we said, "Okay, Cordelis, you got him." Cordelis was about 6'2", quick, could jump, fast. You got him. No help. You just take care of him. And Redick came down to first. They got the tap. He came across half court and fired and made it. I looked at Ingalls and said, "We better have a plan B." Because there's no way we could stop that guy.
Of all the years I've been watching, it was the most incredible one-day performance I had ever seen. He was unguardable. Not only that, the rest of the team, they didn't seem to be great players. They were just big guys, and everywhere you went, there were double screens. He'd come off these double screens, and he'd hit these three-pointers behind he'd catch the ball, shoot, fade away. And I was just like, there's no way you could stop the guy.
Right. It really, there wasn't, because if you doubled off of him, the other players are very talented. All the players on that starting five for them all had a scholarship in some sport.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, baseball, football, and basketball. They all had scholarships.
I'm sorry.
That was a very talented team.
It was. And it was a home game for them. It was at Liberty, and they're in Roanoke. They brought an enormous. You guys had a nice crowd. Always Hayfield had, but they brought an enormous crowd, and it was there. It was one of those moments as a basketball fan that I'll never forget. It was a great game. I was very disappointed because At the time, we hadn't won a state championship since '81, and that truly was a great team. And I think any normal team you play at state, that team could have handled almost anything. But that day in Reddick, nobody could have
Yeah.
beaten them. Yeah.
At 88, that team was Stewart and Claxton and Cardell. I was probably, without a doubt, the most athletic team I had. I mean, they could just shut you. Thomas Dale came in there, and they were highly routed. I think they were ranked second or third in the state. They couldn't breathe. We just took everything away from them.
You just destroyed them. I mean, I was there. I was at Lake Braddock, and I was so
Right.
excited. I was so excited about your team because, Beecher's had a couple good teams in Hayfield as well. He almost won the state one year as well. But oftentimes, Northern Region teams, we had to hold the ball at the state tournament to be competitive. And I just felt this is the team. We didn't have to hold the ball at all. This team could play against anybody because
Right.
they could shoot outside. They have athletic ability. They were very disciplined. I mean, they played within your system, but they could go up tempo as well. So it was
Right.
exciting, and it was disappointing. I mean, there's nothing you could do. It's one of those games.
Like I said, we needed a plan B and didn't have it because when he shot that first shot of the game from outside the hash mark, I looked at Bill Ingles and said, "We're in trouble."
Yeah.
How do you guard that?
Yeah. It was some of those. Coach, do you miss coaching? I mean, when you look back on your career, obviously one of the top one or two, three coaches in the history of Northern Virginia, and one of the best coaches in the history of the state. You probably, when you started, had no idea you were going to accomplish this much. Little by little, freshman coach, Fort Hunt. You never even got there. Went to Lee. You accomplished so much. When you look back on it, do you miss those days, or do you just enjoy the memories and the relationships that you built?
Well, I honestly, I miss the kids. I miss taking a group of kids from one level, and by the end of the season, at another level. There's 2 or 3 or 4 teams we had that really did well, that had 11-9, 12-8. When it came tournament time, they really played well, and that was the fun of coaching, just to bring kids from one level and take them to the next. And I do miss that.
Yeah, you miss that. When you look back, are you glad that you moved to different schools and got different experiences, or do you ever wish you would have, made a career at Lee or whatever? Are you glad
No,
you moved around some?
I just needed different challenges. I think, when I left Lee to go to Robinson, they were down a little bit the few years before I got there. The principal was my old principal at Lee. And he asked me to come over, Bill Jackson, and I went. I wanted to go to Oakton because they never had a winning season, and that was a challenge. Honestly, my first parent meeting, I had to explain to the parents what the regional tournament was. They'd never been it. They had no idea. And I said, well, before I leave here, we're going to state. I promise you that. And you'll know what the regional tournament is. You'll know what the state tournament is.
Right.
And we did. Thanks to Kevin Brown.
Yeah.
And all those kids. All those kids just worked. They all bought into it. They all said, let's go.
And Coach, you had some challenging relationships with some coaches. In retirement, did you guys make up, and did you guys break bread together and become friends, or did those kind of difficult moments remain?
I think I left it on a good way. I think everything went fine. I'm not sure how they feel, whoever it might you're talking about, but there are some hard times. I tell you, when you get into my thing was, my kids work as hard as anybody possibly can. I'm gonna work hard for them, and I'll make sure everything's on the up and up. And that's That was our philosophy. Everybody works hard.
Yeah, I've worked with many coaches in my career and watched many play. And the thing I'll say about you, you always had a vision of what you wanted. You have a vision and you stick with it. And I think that's a good lesson in life for anybody. If you have a vision and especially if you've had success with that vision, stick with it and sell your vision. And I think you're more likely to have success, and it's more enjoyable when you win that way.
Right. It's always, I guess they call me a system coach. I don't really know what that means other than we wanted things done a certain way and we did it. Excuse me. And that's, the thing that I enjoyed most when we're doing our coaching was you gave a kid a role, he embraced it, he took it, he made it his role, he did exactly what he was supposed to do, and and contributed. And all the players, we didn't play a lot of people. We played 6, maybe 7, but everybody on the bench felt like they contributed because practices were tough. They were hard because the kids on the bench wanted to make it hard, and they did. It was a good thing.
Well, I hope you're enjoying yourself on your boat down there. Are you down in Northern Neck?
I'm down in Northern Neck on the Little Wacomico.
Maybe one day I'll come down and join you down there for a boat ride.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah, but I do appreciate you all your great work. I was definitely a fan from afar, and I was really happy I got a chance to work with you because you just did an amazing job, and you touched the lives of all your kids. When you look at the Facebook group, it's easy to see how they feel about you. They're very passionate about you and the things that they accomplished. At your different teams. So anyway, and thanks again for doing this and being involved with Nova Legends. I think it's fun for all of us to get together and relive these big games because they might not mean as much anymore, but I mean they meant the world to us back then.
Right.
We would talk about and think about these games for weeks and months. So it's been great just having these memories.
Well, I want to thank you for your website. It is unbelievable. It's brought back lots of memories of good times, and especially when I read some quotes from the kids. It's just my ex-players I love them, and to hear them express things and remember what happened, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, they do. They really do. They really had a great time there. Even the ones that didn't play much, that contribute on the group, you can tell they had a great experience, even though they didn't even play a lot.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay, Coach. Look, I know that this has been kind of long, and I appreciate your patience, but I really enjoyed it. And let's keep in touch, and hopefully you'll continue to contribute to the group.
Okay, I will. Thank you a lot, Julian.
Okay, Coach. We'll be in touch.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.